I spent this morning going over something the mainstream outlets barely touched. A new Israeli intelligence report about Iran, a mountain, and a move that changes the entire nuclear equation. Let me walk you through what they found. And before I get into it, I'm genuinely curious where you land on this one. Drop a comment and tell me what you think about this report. Because honestly, I went back and forth myself just reading through it. So there's a mountain in Iran called Pickaxe Mountain. Sounds like something out of a video game, right? But what's inside it right now is very, very real. And according to Israeli intelligence, something got moved into that mountain in the last couple of weeks. Something that changes what we know about Iran's nuclear program. And I want to explain to you exactly what happened here. Because the headlines, they got it kind of wrong. Or at least they left out the part that actually matters. The report came out of Israel, July 21st, 2026, and it says, Iran moved nuclear centrifuges, the machines that enrich uranium, the heart of a nuclear weapons program. They moved them into these tunnels deep inside Pickaxe Mountain. Not just a few of them. The report suggests a significant transfer. And here's why that should make you nervous. This isn't some random mountain. It's near Natanz. You've heard of Natanz. That's Iran's primary nuclear facility, the one inspectors go to, the one they've been arguing about for years. So why move centrifuges out of the main facility and into a mountain? You already know the answer. You just don't want to say it out loud. But I'm going to say it for you. They're hiding them. Now, let me back up for a second, because this didn't happen in a vacuum. You have to understand what's been building. The last year and a half, everything with Iran has been weird, quiet, too quiet. And that's what actually worries me more than the headlines. In early 2025, there were back-channel talks. Some of them here in the US, some of them in Oman. Everyone thought Iran was pulling back. There were whispers they were slowing down enrichment, that they might actually be serious about a deal this time. And a lot of people in Washington, they bought it. Hell, I almost bought it. But then things started shifting. Late 2025, there was this incident. You remember. A scientist, someone connected to their missile program, just vanished. Not killed, vanished. Nobody claimed responsibility. Iran blamed Israel, but they didn't even make a big show of it. They went quiet. That's not normal. When something happens to Iran's program, they usually scream loud. This time, nothing. And that was the first sign something was different. Then you had the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency. Their inspectors were getting denied access to sites. At first, it was just bureaucratic excuses, paperwork delays. Oh, the site is under maintenance. You know the drill. But by early 2026, it was more blatant. One inspector was literally told they couldn't enter a facility because there was a, quote, security exercise happening. A security exercise that lasted 3 weeks. Nobody believed that. But nobody wanted to push too hard either. because everyone was scared of what they'd find. And here's where it gets really interesting. The satellite imagery. Israeli intelligence has been watching this mountain, Pickaxe Mountain, for years. There's nothing new about the mountain itself. It's been there. But what they started seeing in late June was the movement. Heavy trucks, lots of them, going in, and not as many coming out. That's the detail people are missing. You don't move that much equipment into a mountain unless you're planning to keep it there for a long time or permanently. And when you're talking about nuclear centrifuges, permanent is a dangerous word. Now ask yourself, why would you do that? Why move centrifuges out of a heavily monitored facility like Natanz, where at least there's some oversight, into a mountain that nobody has access to? It's not because you're trying to be transparent. And I want to slow down here, because the next part is the real gut punch. The tunnels in Pickaxe Mountain aren't just some old mining shafts. They were built for this. They were specifically constructed over the last few years. Nobody paid that much attention. It was just mountain work, right? Iran builds roads, tunnels, infrastructure. But these tunnels were different. They were reinforced, deep, designed to withstand bunker buster bombs. The kind of bombs the US and Israel would use if they ever decided to strike. So you've got a facility that's bomb-proof, hidden, and now full of centrifuges. And the centrifuges? They're not the old IR-1 models, the ones that break down constantly. These are the newer ones, IR-6, possibly IR-9. Machines that can enrich uranium at speeds that would shock you. If they're running those in a mountain, even a few dozen of them, they could produce weapons-grade material faster than anyone could realistically stop them. But here's the part that made me sit back in my chair. The report doesn't say they've stopped activity at Natanz. It says they moved centrifuges into the mountain. It doesn't say they shut down the main facility. So what are they doing? Are they still running some at Natanz for show while the real work happens underground? That's actually more likely than you'd think. And I got to say something here. I'm frustrated because our own intelligence agencies, they've known about this mountain for a while. But every time they brief Congress, it's the same thing. We're monitoring the situation. We're confident in our capabilities. I've heard that line for 20 years. It never ends well. Look, Iran is playing a very specific game. They've been doing it since 2018, since the US pulled out of the original nuclear deal. They slowly break the rules, inch by inch. Then they wait. They see how the world reacts. And when nobody does anything serious, they move the goalposts again. Move centrifuges, increase enrichment, block inspections. And the whole time, they're counting on the fact that the US and Israel are too distracted to do anything about it. And honestly, they're not wrong. I mean, think about our political climate right now. You and I both know what it's like. Half the country can't agree on anything. The other half is still fighting about things that happened years ago. There's no bandwidth for a crisis with Iran, and Iran knows that. They've read the room better than our own State Department. But Israel hasn't read the same room. And that's what scares me, because Israel has a different timeline. They don't have the luxury of wait and see. When they see centrifuges going into a mountain that's designed to survive airstrikes, they don't think, well, maybe we should do more diplomacy. They think we need to stop this now or it's too late. And that's what we're staring at right now, a potential Israeli strike, preemptive, unilateral. And the U.S. might not even know about it until it's already happening. Maybe even find out the same way the rest of the world does, on Twitter. That's not a comforting thought. Now I want to take you through what Israeli intelligence actually believes is happening in that mountain, because the public reporting is vague, but the private assessments, they're terrifying. There's a theory, and I'm not saying it's confirmed, but it's being circulated in defense circles. And the theory is that Iran is preparing for a final breakout capability, meaning they'll have enough enriched material hidden away to assemble a weapon in a matter of weeks. Not years, weeks. And nobody would know until it's too late. And where would they assemble it? In that mountain or somewhere else? They could move the material out in pieces. You'd never detect it. Centrifuges are just machines. They can be broken down, transported in trucks labeled as farm equipment, and reassembled in another hidden location. The whole point of this, the whole strategy, is deniability and survivability. If you don't know where the centrifuges are, you can't hit them. If you can't hit them, you can't stop them. And here's another piece that chills me. This report came out on July 21st. That's the date. And that's not an accident. Israel controls the timing of these intelligence leaks. They don't just happen. When they put something out, they're sending a message. And the message here is crystal clear. We know what you're doing, and we're going to do something about it. They're giving the world a warning shot. But who's listening? That's the question that keeps me up at night, because every country with any power in this region is distracted. China is dealing with its own economic mess. Russia is still bleeding men and equipment into Ukraine. Europe is terrified of the energy crisis every winter. And America? America is in the middle of a presidential cycle where the election is basically a year away and nobody can think past the next news cycle. This is the perfect moment for Iran to make a move. And they know it. I've been watching Iran for a long time. I remember when they were building the Fordow facility, and everyone said it was for peaceful purposes. And then we found out it was buried in a mountain too. We keep falling for the same trick. They build something, hide it, say it's civilian, and then years later we find out it was a weapons program all along. And we act shocked every single time. But this time feels different, because this time they're not hiding the fact that they're hiding things. They're doing it in plain sight. And that tells me something. It tells me they're not afraid. They don't think the U.S. or Israel has the stomach for a military response. And maybe they're right. And that's a hard thing to say out loud. Now let's look at what the actual centrifuges mean, because not every centrifuge is the same. The old IR-1 centrifuge, the one they had in the 2000s, could enrich uranium to around 1 to 2 separative work units per year. That's a technical way of saying it's slow. IR-6 machines, they're around 5 to 6 SWUs. IR-9 is being developed to be even faster. So if they have a few hundred IR-6s in that mountain, their production rate could multiply by 5, maybe 10 times. And if they move the IR-9s there, then we're talking about a completely different timeline. And this is where I want you to imagine something. Imagine you're an Israeli defense minister. You wake up, you see satellite images of trucks moving centrifuges into a hardened mountain. You know that in 6 months, maybe less, they'll have enough material for a bomb. And you know that if you don't act, the world will condemn you later for not stopping it. But if you do act, you might start a regional war. That's the choice. That's the real weight of this report. Not the facts of the movement. The fact that someone, somewhere, is going to have to make an impossible decision. And let's not pretend the U.S. doesn't have a role here. We've been the security blanket for Israel for decades. We've supplied the bunker busters, the GBU-57s, the bombs designed to hit exactly these kinds of targets. And we've always said Israel has the right to defend itself. But what happens when Israel decides that self-defense means going into Iran alone? Do we back them? Do we stay out of it? Do we get dragged in anyway because of our bases in the region? I don't have a good answer, and I don't think anyone does. And the thing is, Iran knows all of this. They're not stupid. They have analysts too. They've watched every single Israeli strike in Syria, in Lebanon, in Iraq. They know the playbook. So why would they move centrifuges into a mountain if they thought Israel would just bomb it? Because maybe they want the strike. Maybe they're baiting Israel into a conflict that weakens both Israel and the United States. Think about that for a second. What if this whole thing is a trap? I know that sounds like conspiracy theory, but look at what's happened over the last 10 years. Iran has been patient. They're playing a long game. They've been building alliances with Russia, with China, with anyone who opposes the U.S. They've been stockpiling missiles, building drone factories, training proxy militias in Syria, Yemen, Lebanon. This isn't just about nuclear weapons. This is about fundamentally changing the power balance in the Middle East, and they're closer than they've ever been. Now I want to talk about the reaction, or the lack of one. The world woke up yesterday, saw the headlines about Iranian centrifuges and Pickaxe Mountain, and what happened? Nothing. A few European diplomats issued cautious statements about monitoring the situation. The White House, as of last night, hadn't issued a formal response. I checked myself. Nothing. The State Department mentioned ongoing dialogues with our allies. That's bureaucratic speak for, we don't know what to do yet. And honestly, that silence is louder than anything else. It tells you everything you need to know about how stuck we are. We've run out of diplomatic options. Sanctions aren't working. Iran's economy is already beaten down. They've learned to live with it. The threat of military action has been used so many times that it's lost its shock value. So what's left? What's the next move? Because if there's no next move, Iran wins by default. I keep thinking about the people who have been warning about this for years. They were ignored, called alarmists, war hawks, but they were right. They were right about North Korea. They were right about Iran's missile tests. And they were right about the fact that sooner or later we'd be standing here looking at a mountain full of centrifuges and realizing we let it happen. And let me be clear, this isn't about partisan politics. This isn't about who's in the White House. I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican. The system isn't built to deal with problems like this anymore. We're too slow, too divided, too easy to manipulate, and Iran has exploited every single weakness we have. That's not a political statement. That's just the truth. But there's also a human element I want to touch on. Because behind all of this, the intelligence reports, the satellite images, the diplomatic cables, there are real people. In Israel, they're worried. I've talked to friends there. They don't sleep well right now. Parents are thinking about the draft notices their kids might get if things escalate. And in Iran, there are people too. Not the regime, the ordinary people, the shopkeepers, the students, the families. They're terrified of what might happen to their country. They know their government is playing with fire, and they can't do anything about it. I don't say that to make excuses for the regime. They're dangerous. They have a vision that doesn't include peace with anyone. But I say it because we need to remember what's at stake. A strike on Iran isn't a video game. It's real. People will die. And the aftermath will be catastrophic for the entire region, maybe for the world. And that brings me to something else. I don't usually talk about this kind of thing, but I'm going to be honest. I've read a lot of intelligence reports over the years. I've watched crises unfold in real time. The Ukraine invasion, the Gaza wars, the attacks on oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. And every time there was this moment where everyone thought it was going to spiral out of control. But it didn't, at least not all the way. But this one feels different, because this one has a clear timeline, a ticking clock. And once the centrifuges are fully operational in that mountain, the options for stopping them shrink to almost nothing. So what happens next? I think we're going to see more saber rattling from Israel, maybe a few targeted cyber attacks. They've done it before. Stuxnet, that was a masterpiece of digital warfare. But even that didn't stop Iran. It just slowed them down. And now, with the centrifuges buried so deep, a cyber attack might not even reach them. You can't hack what's not connected to the internet. And I'm pretty sure Iran learned that lesson the hard way. And maybe that's the scariest part. They've learned from us. Every move we've made, every attack, every sanction, they've studied it and adapted. They're not the same country they were in 2010. They're more resilient, more determined, and more willing to take risks because they feel like they have nothing left to lose. Now, I want to come back to something I said earlier. The question I opened with. Why would Iran move centrifuges into a mountain? And I think the answer is twofold. One, to protect their program from an Israeli strike. But two, to send a message. That message is, we are ready for the final stage. We are past the point of no return. And if you want to stop us, you're going to have to start a war. Are you willing to do that? Because we are. That's a challenge, not just to Israel, to the United States, to the entire international community. And so far, the answer has been silence. And that silence, it's deafening. Now let me talk about what the next few weeks might look like. I'm not a fortune teller, but I can read patterns. There's going to be an emergency meeting at the UN Security Council, probably within the next week or so. Iran will deny everything. They'll say the report is fabricated by Israeli intelligence. They'll invite inspectors, maybe even let them into some of the mountain tunnels, but they'll control what those inspectors see. They'll let them look at a few empty chambers, take a few samples, and then declare the whole thing settled. And the world will accept it, because the world doesn't want a war. But Israel won't accept it. They can't, not with their survival on the line. And by the end of August, or maybe September, we're going to see something. I don't know if it'll be a full-scale bombing campaign. I don't even know if it'll be public. It could be a covert operation, could be a sabotage operation inside Iran. Or it could be something we've never seen before, a new kind of warfare. But something is coming. You can feel it in the air. And I keep coming back to this one image, the mountain, Pickaxe Mountain. It's not just a rock face, it's a symbol. It's Iran saying, we have a place you can't touch. And that changes everything. Because for years, the implicit threat of military force was what kept Iran in check. The idea that the US or Israel could at any moment bomb their nuclear facilities. That threat is now gone. You can't bomb a mountain. Not effectively. Not without risking everything. So where does that leave us? Honestly, I don't know. And I think anyone who says they know is lying to you. This is uncharted territory. We've never faced a nuclear program this well hidden, this advanced, and this close to a breakout. The Cold War, as dangerous as it was predictable. There were rules. This is different. This is a rogue state with a death wish and a nuclear ambition that will not be stopped by sanctions. And I'll leave you with this. Everything I've told you today, all of this, it's based on what we know. But there's always more that we don't know. Maybe they've already enriched enough material. Maybe they have a bomb already assembled somewhere else. Maybe the whole world is walking into a trap. I don't know. And that uncertainty is the weapon Iran is using against us. They don't need to fire a single missile. They just need us to be afraid. And right now, we are. This isn't over, not by a long shot. And I'm going to be watching every move they make from here on out. Thanks for sticking with me through this one. I know it's a heavy topic, but it matters. And if you want to keep getting the breakdowns on the stuff the mainstream skips, you know where to find me. I'll be right here.